Wind 300 at 16.33, runway 31 left, clear to land.
An airplane accident, in aviation jargon, is an occurrence that results in the death or injury of passengers and crew members, as well as damage to the plane. An incident, on the other hand, is any occurrence that could, but did not, result in an accident. A collision, for example, is classified as an accident. However, turning off the cockpit display during a flight is an occurrence. Since the Wright brothers' first powered flight in 1903, there have been numerous incidents and accidents. The first aircraft incident, in which 200 or more people died, occurred on March 3, 1974, when 346 died in the crash of Turkish Airlines Flight 981. As of April 2020, there have been 33 aviation incidents, in which 200 or more people died. The top 10 countries, with the highest number of fatal civil airliner accidents, from 1945 to 2021 are the United States, Russia, Canada, Brazil, Colombia, UK, France, Indonesia, Mexico and India. The UK is noted to have the highest number of air crashes in Europe, with a total of 110 air crashes within the time period, and Indonesia is the highest in Asia at 104, followed by India at 95. However, some of these occurrences are so terrifying and uncommon that they demand special attention. 5. British Airways Flight 5390. On June 10, 1990, British Airways Flight 5390 was flying from Birmingham, England, to Malaga, Spain, when a cockpit windshield blew out, at an altitude of more than 5,200 meters. The sudden loss of pressure sucked Captain Timothy Lancaster out of his seatbelt. He was saved from being blown out of the airplane by the quick action of flight attendant Nigel Ogden, who held onto him by the waist. At the same time, Lancaster's legs hit the controls and disconnected the autopilot, sending the airplane into a dive. The first officer recovered the airplane from the dive, but more than half of Lancaster's body remained sprawled over the top of the airplane. The change in pressure had also started dragging Ogden out of the airplane, and he was then saved by another flight attendant, who held onto his belt. By now, Lancaster's face was furiously banging on the side of the cockpit windshield, and the crew thought he was dead. Someone even suggested that they release him. But they decided to hold onto him, over fears that he might be sucked into the engine, and cause more damage. The airplane made an emergency landing at Southampton, England, where Lancaster was found to be alive. He was treated for fractures and frostbite. There were no other major casualties. 4. Philippine Airlines Flight 812. On May 25, 2000, Philippine Airlines Flight 812, with 278 passengers and 13 crew members, was flying from Davao City to Manila, when it was hijacked by a man armed with a gun and a hand grenade. The man, who was later identified as Augusto Lacandula, ordered the pilots to return to Davao. After they told him that they did not have enough fuel, he instructed them to reduce their altitude so that he could jump out. Before jumping, he robbed the passengers of their money, and asked the crew to teach him how to use his homemade parachute. One of the pilots realized that his low-quality parachute had no ripcord, and quickly made one for the hijacker with the curtain sash. The pilots decompressed the cabin, and opened a rear door before one of the crew pushed Lacandula out. He left behind his gun and one shoe. Lacandula did not survive the jump. His remains were found in the forest, even though the money he stole was missing. It was suggested that his poor quality parachute initially deployed but later failed, sending him plummeting to earth. 3. Aerolini Itavia Flight 870. On June 27, 1980, Aerolini Itavia Flight 870, flying from Bologna to Palermo, mysteriously crashed in the sea around Ustica Island, killing all 77 passengers and 4 crew members. To date, the cause of the crash, which Italians call the Ustica Massacre, remains a mystery. Mechanical problems and terrorism were initially fingered as possible causes until a 1989 investigating commission concluded that the plane was shot down by a missile. At the time, Italian president claimed that the airplane had been shot down by a French missile. It is speculated that the aircraft became caught in the crossfire of aerial combat between NATO and Libyan planes. This speculation gained more credence after the wreckage of a Libyan MiG-23 was found in Calabria a few weeks after the crash. The Italian government has been accused of covering up the crash, and 5 Italian Air Force officials linked to the event have died under suspicious circumstances. In 2011, a Palermo civil tribunal ruled that Aerolini Itavia Flight 870 had been struck by a missile, and ordered the Italian government to pay €100 million in compensation for failing to protect the Italian skies, concealing the truth, and destroying evidence. 2. British Airways Flight 009. On June 24, 1982, British Airways Flight 009 was flying from Kuala Lumpur to Perth when it lost all 4 engines as it cruised over Java, Indonesia. Before the loss of power, Captain Eric Moody had noticed smoke rising from the airplane floor, followed by an irritating smell and a strange glow called street. At the same time, the cabin crew saw that the front of the airplane's engines glowed like they were burning inside. The airplane started losing its engines one after the other, until the aircraft was turned into a jumbo glider with 247 passengers. Moody seized this opportunity to tell the passengers that all 4 engines had stopped working, but he trusted them to keep their cool, while he and his first officer did their best to restart the engines. The pilots were able to restart the engines 15 minutes later and quickly made a detour to Jakarta. Investigations revealed that the engines were damaged and clogged with volcanic ash released during the eruption of Mount Galunggung. The pilots were only able to restart the engines because the ash had solidified and broken off. 1. Helios Airways Flight 522. On August 14, 2005, Helios Airways Flight 522 was flying from Cyprus to Prague when it crashed in Greece, killing all 121 passengers and crew members. Investigations revealed that almost all the passengers and crew had become unconscious hours before the crash. Apparently, some technicians serviced the airplane before takeoff and forgot to change a key setting in its air conditioning system when they were through. This caused reduced oxygen levels and, consequently, mass unconsciousness of the passengers and crew when the plane was airborne. Worse, both pilots misunderstood the problem when the warning alarm went off. The cabin crew knew that something was wrong when the airplane, which was on autopilot, continued ascending instead of descending when its oxygen masks automatically deployed. However, the crew could not contact the pilots or enter the cockpit because it was protected by locked bulletproof doors that had become a feature of airplanes after the 9/11 attacks. The flight continued on autopilot for 2 hours until it was intercepted by 2 Hellenic Air Force F-16s. One F-16 pilot reported seeing a flight attendant, later identified as Andreas Prodromou, enter the cockpit. But it was too late, as the airplane soon ran out of fuel and crashed. Autopsies revealed that many of the crew members and passengers were alive but unconscious when the plane crashed.